Welcome back. As promised, I'm now going to share with you an analogy for how I see self regulation. I found this was very helpful for me and especially my clients as I started switching from my old way where I didn't have an analogy of teaching self regulation to once I adopted this analogy and really shared it, it seemed to be sinking in better. And I'm going to use this analogy throughout the rest of the course and keep coming back to it over and over again. So as you can see, you have here a brain that is plugged into the wall with a battery. So essentially, what I'm going to be doing is for the rest of this course, I'm going to be comparing our self-regulation and ourselves to our cell phones. We are all addicted to our phones. I don't know anybody who is really not addicted to their phone, including myself. And when I started thinking about things in terms of the cell phone, and granted, it's not a perfect analogy, it's not exactly the same thing. But when I started thinking about all of the different aspects of self-regulation in relationship to the phone, I said, wow, this is really starting to make sense. And as I mentioned, it resonated with my clients. So for the rest of this course, we are going to be comparing ourselves to our cell phones. And the first thing we're going to do is talk about how we cannot separate the hardware from the software. If I were to give you just the phone, just the hardware, without any coding, without any software on that phone, you would not have a working phone. Likewise, if I was able to just hand you all the software without any of the hardware, you still wouldn't have a working phone. You need the software and the hardware combined together in order to have a working phone. I want us to start thinking about ourselves in the exact same way. That you, your body, your brain, and your mind need to be considered together when we talk about your self-regulation and your health and your mental health. We cannot separate the two. Your physical health and your mental health are combined. Everything about you has a direct impact. Your brain is the supercomputer and it impacts the rest of your body. So for the rest of this presentation, I want us to really remember, because it's hard to do that, we are so conditioned to thinking about our brains and our minds as one thing and our bodies is completely different and separating the two. And I really want to bring them together. I really want us to make a concerted effort to think about the entire thing as one. The next thing that I want to discuss, in my world, I hear about emotional regulation all the time. Now, I don't know if you've heard about the term emotional regulation. And so I want to address this right here up front. For me, emotional regulation is a symptom, or rather, emotional dysregulation is a symptom of overall self-regulation or dysregulation. And so I have here an equal sign that it's the same. I could use it interchangeably, but really I like to talk about self-regulation. And when people are talking about emotional regulation or someone being emotionally dysregulated, for me, they're basically saying that that person is dysregulated. So that's the next thing that I really want you to change when you're thinking about and going through this course. Now let's finally tackle, okay, so what is self-regulation? The first thing that is important to know is that self-regulation is not self-control. Again, at least in North American society, we emphasize our ability to have self-control. And we tend to shame ourselves or feel badly at the very least when we're not able to exert any type of self-control over our actions, our thoughts, actions and behaviors are the same thing. And for me, we can't achieve self-control unless we deal with our self-regulation first. And so for me, self-regulation is the precursor. It's what enables self-control to happen. And I don't know about you, But I hear tons of psychologists, psychotherapists, tons of experts talking about pausing between the thought and the action and having that pause so that you're able to take a different action than you would have automatically. And for myself, at least, and for many of my clients, that pause is, for me, was unattainable previous to what I've learned and how I've been practicing self-regulation for myself. But that pause is extremely hard to achieve through sheer willpower or self-control. And it's only when I started my own self-regulation practice that I got better and I was able to slowly increase that pause. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Am I telling you that it's going to be perfect and you're going to execute perfectly every single time? Absolutely not. We are human beings, and there are times where it's not going to happen. If you want to increase the frequency that it's going to happen and you're going to find that pause, and you want to increase that pause overall, then a self-regulation practice is what is needed. The next way that I define self-regulation is by balancing my nervous system. Now, I don't want to give you the impression, and when I say nervous system, we will discuss that in the next part of the course, but we have an autonomic nervous system with two branches. We have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Now, that's what I mean about balancing the nervous system, balancing these two branches. Now, it doesn't mean that we need to balance them perfectly evenly all the time. We need to find that right balance for us, and it's going to change throughout the day depending on what our needs are. So when I say balancing, I don't want us to believe that it's perfectly even at all times. We will discuss that afterwards. It's just the way I have framed it in my mind is that I'm constantly thinking about these two arms of the autonomic nervous system and how can I understand where I am at all times and how to rebalance if it's out of balance. The final way that I think about self-regulation is thinking about my energy expenditure and restoration. And this is where our cell phone comes in very handy. We have a battery. We're constantly paying attention to our phone's battery throughout the day to make sure that we are not going through that battery faster than we have needs. And if we notice that our battery is draining and we have a long part of the day, or we're going to have to use our phones a lot later on, we find time to charge our phone batteries. We're not doing the same thing for ourselves, however. So I want us to start thinking about ourselves in terms of how much energy do I have and deciding how much energy do I need for the rest of the day. Am I towards the end of the day where I don't need to recharge, or maybe I need to do some things throughout the day? So that is also, for me, what self-regulation is. So it's the precursor to self-control. It's balancing the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And it's also constantly being aware of where I am and my energy and how much I'm expending and do I need to charge. So with that, we're going to end this video and we're going to pick ourselves up with the nervous system and learning about the nervous system in a very, hopefully, easy way and not too complicated so that everybody can understand what I'm talking about. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.